All right, welcome back. We are back to the world of GIS programming. So we're looking at GitHub, going to go into online repository, going to go down to this lecture, which is Module 1, Topic 3. So this is us continuing to do our development environment setup. So in the last lecture, we saw how to get ArcGIS Pro installed and make sure that Python is correct, version of ArcGIS Pro is correct, and that we have ArcPy installed. So once that is set up, that's basically all the Esri pieces that you need to do. And this lecture is going to look at Visual Studio Code, which is the actual interactive development environment, or IDE, which we're going to be using for writing our code. If you recall, there is a Python button inside of ArcGIS Pro, but you would prefer not to have to write your code in there because it brings up an editor that you're not going to like. So Visual Studio Code is a full-fledged interactive development environment, or IDE. There are lots of different IDEs out there that you can use for writing all types of code. Another big one for Python is called PyCharm. They all basically do the exact same thing. They allow you to write your code. They highlight it nicely so you can tell what is what just by looking at it. They keep your code organized, and they also allow you to run your code. So you may have heard of something called Visual Studio, which is the main IDE, like the super duper IDE that Microsoft provides for writing code for a lot of different languages. It can run C, C++, C#, J#, VB, VB.NET, basically any of the Microsoft languages. It works really well. If you're at a company that does a lot of development and they do Windows development, it's quite likely that everybody else is already using just regular Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code is an alternative version which is more lightweight. So it's like a scaled back mini version of Visual Studio. Many people would argue that it's better than regular Visual Studio because it does everything that you want Visual Studio to do, but it's smaller, it's faster, it's better in a lot of ways, and most importantly, it runs on every platform. So if you're using a Mac, God help you, number one, in the GIS world, but this will work on a Mac. It will work on Windows machines, and it will also work on any kind of Linux. So it's a cross-platform IDE that allows you to program in almost any language, and it does a really good job. It's open source and free, which is good. We like free. Open source, I don't really care about too much. Other people do. But there's a ton of extensions for it. So just like we talked about for GIS programming, one of the things you might want to do is add some additional functionality into ArcGIS Pro that doesn't exist. That's called an extension. For Visual Studio Code, there are a gazillion extensions that do a gazillion different things. So Visual Studio Code is what we're going to be using for developing, debugging, and running our code in this course. It's super easy to install. You just click on this link here. It's going to bring you to latest stable build. Click download, pick your OS, whatever you're looking for. If you have a normal computer these days, you're going to have a 64-bit computer. So you just want to download the installer file and run it and follow the installation steps, and you got Visual Studio Code installed at that point. It does not come with support for Python by default, but one of the most popular extensions that you can get for Visual Studio Code is the Python extension. So to get to extensions, if I open up my Visual Studio Code here, donde code, Visual Studio Code, Looks like this when you open it. Dark background, super cool code. You look like a hacker. So inside of the View tab here, there's extensions. There's hotkeys for every possible thing you could ever want. So extension sounds like an X. So if you hit Control-Shift-X, it will bring up this dialog, which shows you what you have installed or don't have installed. So we want to go ahead and install Python. It's going to go find it. Boom, there it is. Just double check the one that we want is the one that's there, Python and Python. Click install. Good to go. It's downloading it, installing it. Visual Studio Code, it's got a bunch of like output windows. So as you're writing your code, this output window down here is going to be important to you. It's also got the debug console and the terminal for like entering code by hand. So this is telling me it's going and checking out Python from Git repository where Python is stored for this thing, and going and getting it and installing it, and it's going to tell you to reload Visual Studio. And now we have Python installed, right? So these can be updated from time to time. At this point, don't need to update it. So once you go through and set up the ability to run Python from Visual Studio Code, you will have to do a couple things in order to get ArcGIS Python, so ArcPy, to be able to be used from Visual Studio and from Python. So to do this, you have to configure your system. So we're only going to talk about Windows instructions here. There are different instructions for Linux, but they're basically the same. You have to modify your path to include the ArcGIS Python bundle, the ArcPy package. So what your path is like a directory that it's discussed down here. It's a directory that your computer is going to look in to find things. So without informing your computer where ArcPy lives, then you can't use it. It's special because of how ArcGIS installs ArcPy. Most other packages get installed directly into the Python bin, like binary folder, and you don't have to do anything because everything that's in the Python bin Python already knows where that is, but ArcPy gets installed into a special location. Those are the biggest air quotes you've ever seen. So since it's in there in that special location and not in the normal Python place that every other Python thing gets installed, you have to inform your computer where it lives. So this and the next few steps are the hard part of getting your development environment set up. So if you installed ArcPy like any other package, which unfortunately you can't do, you wouldn't have to do these steps. But because Esri is special, with a smile, he says, because Esri is special, it's installed in a different place than where everything else goes. You have to do these steps. So all we're going to do is we're going to go into our system settings and we're going to like add the location of ArcPy to the locations that your computer looks in for things. So this is an advanced system setting. So there's lots of different ways you can get there. Easiest is going the Windows key plus the pause/break button, which on my Surface Pro does not exist. Never noticed that before. Fantastic. So the other way to get there is to go to your control panel, go to all items, and then system, right? So how do you get to your control panel? Click here, type control panel, CO. Open that up. We are looking for our all control panel items /system, system. Boom, you are now here. Right, so now you have your advanced system settings, and we need to get into our environment variables, which is this button right here. Click, open, and then we have a path up here, and we have a path down here. So all we're going to do is we're going to edit these two things to include the ArcGIS ArcPy location. All right, so where does ArcGIS ArcPy live? It lives in this location, unless you have chosen to install ArcGIS at a different place. So if we copy this, go to our Windows Explorer, just paste that in, you can verify that it is there. Yes, mine is there. Right, so all that we're doing is we're telling Windows, when you are looking for things, also look in here, because this is where all the Esri stuff is. All right, so we're going to copy this location again, and then we're going to edit our two path variables, which is back over here. Double click on it, we'll edit it, whatever. Or you can click the edit button, and you're just going to add another one to the list by clicking new. Doesn't matter at all what else is up here. Like other programs will automatically install themselves to your path environment. When that program has told you your computer needs to restart in order to finish the installation process, this is one of the reasons why it might need to restart, because these don't always get refreshed without a restart. So all we're going to do is click new, paste that in there, hit OK, go to the other one, click edit, click new, paste that in there, click OK, and now done. Click OK. It may or may not prompt you that you have to reboot your computer. ArcPy may or may not be recognized the first time you try to use it, depending on if you reboot your computer. If you want to be safe, just go ahead and reboot your computer. So this is like one of the annoying steps of setting up the development environment. You only have to do this because ArcPy is not installed where every other Python thing gets installed. So with that part done and your computer restarted possibly, your computer now knows about ArcPy. So the next thing we have to do is inside of Visual Studio Code. So if I go back to code here, right, this is code. You can have multiple versions of Python installed on your computer. So as you're doing development, you have to tell Visual Studio Code which version of Python you want to use, right? So for whatever reason, you might have ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro installed, and you need to write Python for both. So when you are writing Python for ArcGIS Pro, you need to use Python version 3. When you are writing code for ArcMap, you need to use Python version 2. So there's a lot of things which work perfectly between the two of them, and you can't tell the difference if you're in Python version 3 or 2. But for some stuff, it does matter. So for this course, we're always going to be using Python version 3. So if the only Python programming you are doing on your computer is for this course, you just have to set the interpreter one time and you're good. If you are using this same computer that you're working on right now for programming for both ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, you're going to have to switch back and forth, right? So we're going to hotkey this mofo up. So there's a command palette inside of Visual Studio Code, which is one of the nice things. So it is a list of every possible thing you can do inside of Visual Studio Code. To bring it up, you can click Control-P and then just type the thing that you're looking for. So the thing that we are looking for, as it says, is we're going to start typing the word Python, and then it's going to come up with some options, and then it's going to ask us which version of Python do we want, and it's going to show all the different versions of Pythons which are installed on your computer. So if you set your path correctly, it's going to look a lot like this above, and you want to pick Python 3.5.2. So let's give it a shot. So where's my Visual Studio Code? Right here. So I'm going to type in Python. I'm going to select interpreter. So I'm going to type in Control P for palette, start typing Python, and didn't come up. Awesome. So now we need to try to figure out why that's occurring. So I'm going to pause real fast. Or I'll just keep going. We'll edit it out. Whatever. View command. So did I restart? Nah. Now you are watching real-time debugging. Awesome. So this is a brand new computer that I'm running this on, which is always a good thing for class. If I can't get it to work, it also means you ain't going to be able to get it to work. So recently used Python interpreter. So let's try the other way. View command palette. View EF command palette. Oh, yeah, I don't know what the difference is here. It's probably just way at the bottom. Python interpreter. Yeah, so it was working. It just wasn't looking exactly like it did in the image. So that was my problem. All right, so select Python interpreter. Boom. Where'd it go? There we go. Cool. Python 3.6. Awesome. We're going to use that one. So you want to use 3 dot anything. So depending on like what date it is that you download Python or take this course, there's going to be a different version of Python available. So you want, for ArcGIS Pro, you want Python 3 something. So boom, done. Mine showed the 2 different versions of Python, 2.7 and 3.6, because I also have ArcMap installed on here. 2.7 is the ArcMap version. So when we were working in Arc Pro, you want the 3 dot version. Cool. So at this point, our development environment should be set up. So even though I was whining about what a pain in the ass it is, you are now done. Like if all of these steps worked, then you should be good, most likely. Oh, actually, I did it wrong. So I need this 3521 now that I'm looking at this in more detail, right? So I know it because this is special. Program files, ArcGIS Pro, bin, Python, ends. That's the one that I should have pointed to. It didn't show on my computer because I didn't reboot. So after I reboot, I will have this middle one. You want this special Esri one as your choice. So I misspoke when I said any version of 3. You need this special one. So I'm not going to go through the process of rebooting right now. But after you do a reboot and your environment gets reread, and you're doing your select Python interpreter, you want to pick this one, and then you're going to be good. All right, so a very important part of programming is setting up your directories properly. For the rest of your computering life, you should never do 2 things. You should never store anything on your desktop, and you should never use spaces and file names ever, 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 ever again. Putting things on your desktop means that your directories are going to be crazy when you need to start bringing things in from files into code, because if we go to our desktop, let's find our desktop here, and we look at it. So where's my desktop? Like, that is not a link that will work inside of code. Like, there's no such thing as /desktop. /desktop is actually C:/users/ weirdly named version of your username /desktop. Right? So if you store stuff on your desktop and you have like desktop /file.shp for a shapefile, this is the friggin' path you got to use. If your username is long, you might have a tilde in there. If your username has a space in it, you might have a space in there. So you don't want to have to mess around with any of that. You want to keep your code somewhere super simple because you're going to have to type it a million times. So I keep my code in C:/dev/name of code thing, right? Because you're going to have to type this over and over and over and over again, and you want to type the minimum amount possible. So C:/dev/gis/01 for week 01 /02 for week 02 /03 for week 03 is a really good way to organize your code. Spaces are horrible in file names because you now have to handle that space specially. You can't just use a string of letters all together. You got to deal with that space in some stupid way. So if you have a colleague or if you download a file that has a space in it, you should inform that person that they are being an asshole. That computery stuff, you don't name things with spaces, you don't have strange characters that are not a dash or an underscore. From this point on, for the rest of your life, you are only allowed to use letters, numbers, dash, and underscore as file names. You will have no percent symbols, you have no dollar signs, you have no exclamation points, you will have no spaces in anything. So if you organize your folder structure for this course like this, you will be very happy. So you'll notice if you download all the GitHub for this course, this is how we have it organized. We have lots of years of experience doing coding. We have learned this the hard way, that keeping your code organized in a consistent structure will help you a lot. So if you would like to actually start doing some coding, you should make your directory structure ahead of time. And then, so let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to put it inside of here. Then I'm going to put it, so call this one new folder, Geog 676. Inside of here, how do we have it in the lecture slides so I can do it the same? I'm going to name it new folder / topic, and then inside of topic, do new folder 01. I'm a copy and paste maniac, VVV. So we have F2 to rename is super handy hotkey, and then F2 to rename 03. Cool. So I now have a directory structure that makes sense. Like you might put your lectures over here because you can download the whole source repository for this course. But the other fun thing you can do now is you can right-click on this parent folder with Visual Studio Code, right-click in Explorer and say Open with Code, and it is going to open up that directory structure for you. Right, so we now have week 1 in there, or sorry, module 1 in there, module 2 in there, module 3 in there. Right, and then inside of here you can make a new file, call it test.py. Awesome. Right, so now I don't have to mess around inside of this folder, like by hand making new files, like text document, and then rename it as a Python file. I'm just doing everything inside of Visual Studio Code. Right, so when you start working around in Visual Studio Code, it's going to give you a bunch of like helpful hints, and usually you should follow those hints. So it's telling me right now, like Python lint. Lint is a thing that like sort of parses and beautifies code. So it's saying you have an error, you don't have this handy Python thing installed, so just go ahead and install it. And it's like working away in the background doing it. So now inside of here, so it's running it, it's going and getting it, and it's installing it. So it's doing pip install for you, right? So in Visual Studio, when you need things like packages that you don't currently have, it will go and get all of them for you, right? So this is one of the awesome things about Visual Studio Code, is that it will handle all this stuff, and it will get all the dependencies because Python lint depends on these guys, so it's going and getting all of the dependencies as well, and it's installing them for you. So now inside of here, you can get rid of this. You can actually start writing Python, right? So our first thing is going to be to import ArcPy and just print out success. So copy paste ArcPy. Like I don't have it working right now, but it will for you if you have rebooted your computer. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like anyway. So inside of the IDE, we see things in different colors. It shows you the line numbers over here on the left. This is why we love Visual Studio Code, because import statements are in pink, other built-in functions are in yellow, strings are in orange. All right, so this is what an IDE does for you, is it color codes the words of your code so you can easily see like what is what. All right, so this is an GIS, a WebGIS program right here. ArcPy is not going to work for me, so I'm going to delete that right now because I haven't rebooted yet. Click Save, and then print success is a complete Python code, right? Complete program. Like, we can run this now and it will do a thing. I'm going to give you one guess what it's going to do. It's probably going to print out the word success. All right, so how do we run this thing? Let me put my ArcPy back in here so you can see what an error looks like as well. So Control S saves. So let's see how we run. So Control Shift P to get our palette up again, and then we hit Python, run Python. So we come back over to Visual Studio Code. Where are you? Control Shift P, type Python, and one of these is going to be run. They come up like in recently used after a little while, so you won't have to search this whole way. Python run. What's the exact one I'm looking for? Hang on, I forgot. I'm looking for run Python file in terminal. Nope, that's not the one. Let's get back to where we were. Oh, damn it, disappeared. I'm just going to go this way. Command palette, because then they'll be in here. Python colon run where you is run Python file in terminal. Damn it, yes. So after a while, it'll be up in the recently used one. So this is going to throw an error for me because I did not reboot my computer. So it's going to do it down here, and you're going to be able to see the output. So it's like currently cracking away, trying to run it, and it told me, guess what? You got an error. You are not signed in. It's trying to import it and saying not signed into portal, can't run. So I'm going to make a note that, whoops, copy. Damn it. It's probably doing auto copy. All right, so this is lecture 3. Where are you? I have this thing open. There it is. So this is an example of an error that we forgot to include. All right, so error. So we will update to include what to do if you do this. But in any case, we have now run Python. It told us we have an error and you can't do anything. So that means if you see that, it means that you don't have your path set properly. So if I get rid of that, which I can do by deleting it, or I can make it a comment. So comment is put a pound in front. Comment is stuff in your code that doesn't actually run. So I comment it out, import ArcPy, and do the same thing again. Control Shift P, and boom, right there. Now it's going to tell me, ampersand, no, fuck, I'll just delete it. All right, Control Shift P, it is right there. Yay, so printed out, success, right? So we just ran a Python file successfully. Congratulations. So we will update it, update the lecture notes like immediately after this to handle this error. So if you get this error, it will be at the bottom of the page of what to do. But this is Visual Studio Code. This is what we're going to be using like full time for most of it. So if you don't have this, oh, did I close it? No, I didn't. This is called the console window down here. So this is where your output gets placed. For most code, like there's no output, so it doesn't really matter if you do or don't see something. But when you get errors, this is super helpful. So this is an example of an error, right? Not signed into portal, so ArcPy won't work. But if you get rid of this and just do print success, damn it, save, run, there is a hotkey for this. I just need to remember what it was. So Control Shift P, run Python. You can also clear this thing, right? So it ran again. So let me clear this. Damn it. I wanted to kill terminal. One of these is clear. I can't remember what's what. Clear is probably clear. Yeah, there you go. So run again. Control Shift P. Run. Congratulations, you just ran your first Python file. I haven't talked about debugging or anything yet, but you can also debug in here, which means you put breakpoints and then it'll stop there. So that's another lecture. So at this point, if you ever rebooted your computer, you should have gotten Python with ArcPy to work. So that is it for this lecture. If everything works for you, your development environment is now set up. Congratulations. If it doesn't work, check the bottom of this page and we will have a list of problems down here and how to solve them. So that's it for this lecture. So let's end this right now.